Hey, hello.
Yes. Hey, hello. Hey,
Hey,
hello.
hello.
First one here, Mo. Shout out to you, buddy. First
Mo
one.
Ritz. I don't know if that's the real
Ritzy.
name, but that's a dope name if that's the real name.
It's a dope name. You're right about that.
Mr. Ritz would be a cool one to walk, or Mr. or
I
Mrs. Like
agree. I agree. There's some real cachet to that.
there
You know
is,
what I mean?
exactly.
Yeah.
Mo's also a cool first name.
Yeah,
So,
I'm with you. All
all right,
right. All
let
right.
us do it.
Good talk, Mo. All right, here we go. Hold on.
Nicely
All
done.
right. Thanks, buddy. Hey, hello. It is the Go Birds podcast presented by the Bet Parks Sportsbook and Casino app. Elliott Shore Parks, James Seltzer with you. It is Monday afternoon. The legal tampering period is open as deals are done 3 minutes after the tampering period opens. They just negotiate real quick. Like they don't do
Well,
it before then.
I love all the big J's out there doing the whole legal tampering, but we all know blah blah blah. Like, yeah, man. The
Yeah,
joke,
we
like,
get it.
like yeah,
It's
like
very
we
clear.
get it. Yeah,
It's
it's a
very
big time big
obvious
J
what
joke.
is happening. But obviously it's a fun time. We are actually going to record a pod at 10 o'clock tomorrow. And then, Jason Kelce came back and we're like, all right, pod today, pod tomorrow. We'll just do
Yeah.
our thing. Maybe a quicker one today, but we'll get into obviously some other stuff happening. Some guys gone already, obviously one in a big way. But the reason we're here right now, I'm super tired. I got like 3 hours of sleep last night. I just was telling Elliot my goal is to be asleep by 6:30 tonight.
Whew.
Um,
You're just such
so
an Oscar guy, man. Such a
yes,
movie guy.
it's
Yeah.
true. It's true. But with that in mind, when our guy, the one of the all-time Eagles, one of the legitimately, as Elliot has made the case potentially on the Mount Rushmore of all-time Eagles, and certainly on his way there, if they could win another with him on the way out, he certainly would be. But Kelce's coming back, dude. It's definitely we thought it was gonna happen, but it's definitely the best news we could get.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it good a few pods ago where I think we got to the point where we would have been surprised if he retired, right? So, although this is something that we expected and seemed more and more likely as the season went on, and especially being down in Indy, the feeling I got about what was going to happen. So, I'm not surprised that he's back. But we should take a step back and say what a big deal it is that he is going to be on the team next year.
Mm-hmm.
We'll talk about the guys they lost on defense. We'll have plenty of time to get into that. That aside, the bottom line is this team is going to be as good as their offense is next year. It was the case last year to an extent. It's especially going to be the case this year. And the one thing that can derail a season almost as much as bad quarterback play is bad offensive line play. If they went into next season with Jurgens at center, who we both like as a prospect, but is unproven. Jurgens as a center, Sayamalu gone, right? Dickerson, good player. I think probably not a Pro Bowl player like he made it, but a good player for sure. If they would have gone into next season with uncertainty in front of Jalen, that would have been a massive deal. So to get Kelce back, to have him back on the roster, I tweeted this. I think it's like signing a big free agent. It's adding the best center in the NFL to your roster. While he was already there, obviously, the reality is he could have been gone. It's a bigger deal than if they re-signed Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. It's a bigger deal than, other things they could add. Like having Kelce back is a huge deal for this team. And I don't think it should be looked over just because we thought he was going to be back. Like fans should be really, really excited about the fact that Jason Kelce has decided to return for next season.
Yeah, I agree. I think he was the most important free agent of the offseason. I think he just matters the most on multiple levels, obviously from a culture perspective, the leadership, everything he brings from that perspective, especially, coming off, the first time after a season of sunshines and rainbows with, never losing games and happiness and everyone loves each other. And then, finally seeing some, tiny, but cracks in the armor with the Slay stuff and the GJ Gannon shot and this and that, all that. I think bringing Kelce back and obviously BG on that front too, which I'm sure we'll get to in a minute. But
yeah,
I think that's huge. That's huge. And then obviously as a football player from controlling the line, setting the line, the calls he makes, the ability to do stuff that no other center can do. And oh yeah, again, by the way, he was first team all pro last year. It's like legitimately no drop off in play that we've seen. If anything, he's gotten better with age. He's aged like a fine wine. So it's massive. It's massive for this team getting Kelce back. It means so much on so many levels. And you're right, we shouldn't underrate it. And to the point, getting BG back as well, and BG, really looking like a team friendly type of deal here, where you took the 1-year deal up to $6 million. Who knows what that actually means? But I think, and we'll get into, like you said, losing defense. And to your point, Elliot, you're right. This year, it's going to come down to the offense. The offense really, your theories are going to prove true or not true, especially with, the Niners signing Hargrave. Very funny. Like, you basically have to choose the Eagles over the Niners. But, I think the Kelce BG combo, starting free agency off, we knew we were going to lose guys. The TJ Edwards thing hurt. We'll get to it. But I think, getting Kelce and BG back, especially coming off such productive seasons for them, is, I don't know how an Eagles fan couldn't be happy to start this out.
The other Kelce thought I have is that, so Kelce obviously will be the starting center. And then
should I hit a breaking news sounder or something like that?
That's on the beat ready you need right there. But it does seem like Seumalo will not be back.
So can I take a victory lap for my Jurgens is going to be the guy at guard? And
we'll see. That's where I'm going.
I'm going to hold the victory lap, but the victory lap's on its way.
It's on its way. I'm just going to say it now. I do not like the idea of Jurgens being the unquestioned guard.
I will battle you.
I am fine giving him the job going into the offseason. I'm fine giving him the first chance to win it, all those things. I do not want to go in the next season without a solid veteran at guard that they sign at one point. Even Driscoll, I'm not like super thrilled about the idea of being the top backup. I think Jurgens has a ton of potential. I think the fact he's playing with Kelce is going to help. He's going to be between Lane and Kelce, so his job will be easier for that alone. He'll get taught by them, all those things. Man, like, going in with an unproven player as one of your 5 starting offensive linemen is worrisome. So you have to do it at points. You have to play these young guys. You draft them for a reason. I would just say that moving forward, assuming Seumalo leaves, it's not like a top priority thing, but I think that veteran backup offensive lineman is something this team is going to have to look into.
I get your point, and look, I will never argue with beefing up the lines, the depth on the lines. We've seen so many years where that's mattered. I do like Driscoll. I think he's a fine backup there. Where I'm at with Jurgens is I have the utmost confidence that he's going to be, and I get your point. Like, he's never played guard at the NFL level. He's never played center much at the NFL level. I just think, to your point, playing between Kelce and Lane is not a small matter. I mean, that is, you could be better set up for success playing between two guys in terms of being a young player in that role. We know that, the Eagles obviously saw this as a potential eventuality. They've definitely been training Jurgens at guard. I'm sure he's been working at it. And the most important thing is we have Jeff Stoutland. I mean, This kid is super talented, Jurgens. He is more talented than Isaac Small. He's obviously not a better guard than him. And maybe if he stayed at guard, he could be someday, whatever. But in terms of just physical abilities, Jurgens is a more talented athlete and offensive lineman than Seumalo. So, I just think I trust Stoutland to put him in there. And if Stoutland, they wouldn't have gone with this plan if Stoutland didn't say he thinks it's a good plan. I trust the infrastructure here, and I trust the talent of Jurgens. So I get your point, and I'm not saying it's not fair to bring it up, but I feel confident.
Yeah. I mean, look, if there's any unit on the team where you go, okay, you just trust they'll figure it out, it's the offensive line, because of the coaching, because of the priority they place on it, because of the personnel that they've had there. I'm just highlighting that this whole Jurgens just going to be the guard thing. There is a question mark with that. Like, it's not an elite free agent they've signed at guard here. Like, Jurgens,
sure, but I think there's
Seumalo is a way better guard.
Yeah, I agree, but like any young player who plays is going to have a question mark by them, right?
Yep,
let's put it this way. Let's put it this way. Nakobe Dean, we're going to get to that in a sec, and I am super excited about Nakobe Dean. And for me personally, we'll talk about that in a sec. I'm ready. I think he's going to be awesome. I've never wavered on that. But I think there should be less of a question mark on Jurgens playing guard between those guys with Stoutland, with his pedigree, than there is about Nakobe Dean. And I'm excited about Dean. So I get your point, but I think there's always going to be a question mark with a kid who's never really played at the NFL level.
100%. 100%. I agree with you on that.
All right, let's get to the defensive stuff. We, obviously mentioned BG, and we'll dive more in depth in everything tomorrow. If something happens tonight, we're going to be recording at 10 o'clock tomorrow. We'll do it live here on YouTube if you're watching. So 10 o'clock if you can watch, and obviously the pod will be up right after that. So we'll get into everything, but we wanted to get it up quickly. Especially because, like we said, I'm going to bed at 6:30 tonight.
I was going to say
asleep at 6:30. Going to bed
before your
before that.
bedtime. Yeah,
it's a key. I want to be asleep by 6:30. We'll see how it plays out. But Elliot, let's get to the couple losses we had and then what it means, and we'll get out of here. But Hargrave, obviously the big name. TJ Edwards, it was the very first move we saw, at least on Twitter. The first thing that breaks is like, see it, TJ, to the Bears. The numbers come out. It's like, wow, that's actually seems like a really good deal. Like, I would have taken TJ at that price. Obviously, the Eagles have tiny money to maneuver with. And then Hargrave, the hammer, $481, $21 million a year. Your thoughts on both those signings and losses?
So I mean, the biggest question on the team right now is defensive tackle. Like, they have nobody there. They have Jordan Davis, Milton Williams, and Marlon Tuipulotu. Like, those are the three they have right now, right? And this isn't the time to debate Jordan Davis's future. The reality is they need other players there. Even if you're as high as you can be on Jordan Davis, you don't want to go into next year with that Jordan Davis and Milton Williams as your top two guys. You need somebody else there. So losing Hargrave, I mean, it's a big deal. Like, as good as Eagles edge rushers are, and they are very good, the fact that Eagles were able to create consistent pressure from the middle really helped them. If you look at the Niners, when we previewed the Niners game before the NFC Championship game, one of my big things was they only had Bosa. So you didn't have to worry about anybody besides him. Now the Niners are going to have somebody that can collapse the pocket from the middle. So from the Niners, I think it's a really good pickup. Obviously, the fact the Niners are projected to be one of the teams that will be competing with the Eagles. Now, they don't have a quarterback, so that's a big question for them, right? I wouldn't
you pretty much have to be an Eagles over Niners guy. I mean,
I definitely am. They don't have a quarterback, so they're a big question. But from their
D-line is going to be sick.
Yeah, the defensive line is going to be better now because they added Hargrave. From the Eagles' perspective, I mean, we talked about it leading up to into free agency. I never completely ruled out them signing him just because it's a position they value and he's a great player. But when you see these numbers, they just can't pay him that at this point. Or at least if they would, it would be a massive, massive deal for them in terms of, they'd have to make the cap hit really low this year, extend him out. He's 30 years old. So there's all those components to it. But I think it's definitely a loss for sure. I mean, that's not, breaking analysis either. But now it becomes their biggest position of need. I think it's a much, much bigger need than cornerback. I really think people are forgetting how big of a deal it's going to be that Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave, Sue, and Linval Joseph could all be gone. Those are the top four guys in the Super Bowl. So I probably, if I was Howie sitting in that seat, I wouldn't have paid that money probably, but it definitely is a loss.
Dude, so I totally agree with you on the position of need and especially what they will do. We've seen it. That's why they signed Hargrave for the 339 a few years ago. That's why they drafted Jordan Davis in the first round and took a cornerback in the fourth round a couple years ago. And that's why they waited until right before the season to sign Steve Nelson the year before, and then James Bradbury, which really worked out. And they got lucky that he was cut at that time. But they traded a third and a fifth for Slade. They used a first for Jordan Davis. They value defensive tackle more than they value the secondary. It is what it is. Yeah. It's the way they go about their business. And you're absolutely right. I think it's a real hole. I'm just assuming that Fletcher Cox is going to get more money somewhere else, as we've talked about. We'll see what that shakes out, but that's not, something you're counting on as your rotation there if you bring him back. So it's absolutely a massive, massive need. I think it's the biggest. We talked about it. If I had to bet on just a position at 10, I would bet on D tackle, however it shakes out. But to your point, and my thought, honestly, I'm absolutely happy not paying Javon Hargrave $21 million a year.
Yeah, I think that's overpay for him.
It's just too much money. Yeah. And I would love to have him back. He was the guy I said I wanted the most. I know CJGJ wins all the Twitter polls about who Eagles fans want back the most. Mine was Hargrave. I wanted him back the most, but congrats, buddy. I'm happy for you. That's nuts to me. He's a good football player, a great football player. But I mean, when you look at the team last year, he had 11 sacks. He was really good. And your point, it mattered, but it didn't at any point feel like I was watching one of the two or three best defensive tackles in the sport.
I 100% agree. He is very good. His stats are good, but his two people and all the pod listeners that have watched Hargrave for the last 3 years, I think he's a very good player. I don't think he is one of the best defensive tackles in the NFL. I just don't. And in free agency, you do overpay for sure.
It's what happens. The market is what it is. But
he's a weird guy in the way that the stats are really good. He's a good player, but he's also just not really somebody that I felt ever was a massive difference maker. Like, it helped that the whole middle of the line was able to get pressure, and he's a good player, but I would not have paid him $21 million.
Yeah, especially 30, and obviously
at 30,
I'm sure 31, 32, 33, that range I'm right there with you. All right, let's get to TJ Edwards, because I think in terms of, we're obviously Hargrave's a bigger loss, but in terms of like, why didn't the Eagles do that?
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a lot more. What? 3 for 19 and a half, 12 mil guaranteed. Like, why didn't they do that, Elliot?
Look, I'm surprised they didn't do it. I thought that they really liked him. He's a success story for them. UDFA, become what he has, was up on podiums at the Super Bowl, wore the green dot. Like, I am surprised they didn't do it. Now, the one takeaway could be they are just obviously thinking that Nakobe is ready. Now, I'm not sure Nakobe is going to step in and play. I'm not sure Nakobe is going to step in and play. I'm not sure he's going to step in and play TJ's role. Like, I have to learn more about whether he's more of a TJ Edwards role or a Kaiser White role. Kaiser White, also a free agent. But I will say the same thing, I guess, about Nakobe that I did about Jurgens. I'm optimistic about Nakobe. I have way more reservations about Nakobe than I do Jurgens. I think I'm surprised they didn't get Nakobe on the field pretty much at all last year. Like, not even, I know he got some garbage time snaps, but they didn't find packages to put him in. They didn't so I would be surprised if they went into camp with it being, it is Nakobe's job. I think Nakobe is going to get the first chance at it. I think Jurgens will have a longer leash than Nakobe will at that spot. And maybe they'll sign somebody, but I am surprised for that money they let TJ walk.
I think they're going to sign somebody else. And again, look, Kaiser could be back. Who knows? But I think Nakobe Dean is going to be a starter next year, at least going into camp. That's the plan for at least one of your two linebacker spots. I think Nakobe's the plan. That's why I think they let him walk. And I'm with you, and I think what their plan is to wait the market out a bit and see who a Kaiser type guy is, someone you can get for, cheap, whether it's $5 million or less for one season, and not make a real commitment of any kind of guarantee money. Not that it's massive, but in terms of, as you pointed out, how cash strapped they are right now, and the fact that there aren't guys that they can stretch out and create room with, especially with this whole slate trade thing going on and all that. And you pointed out on Twitter, they have $54 million in dead cap, like, again, and back at the top of the dead cap pile in the league, so they don't really have a ton of flexibility and a ton of maneuverability. So this is the type of deal where I think, like we said, coming into the offseason, hey, you know what? They're going to lose a lot of guys we like, because that's just the situation.
And that's what's happening.
Yeah. And that's what's happening.
But I still think real quick to put a bow on all this.
Yeah, for sure.
I think today is a net positive for the Eagles. Like, you get Jason Kelce back. That is a net positive.
No doubt. Yeah. I don't think there's any question. I 100% agree with you. By the way, Adam Schefter, I'm sure you saw it. Like, a lot of Eagles fans respond with the tweet where he's like, the Eagles lose Javon Hargrave and TJ Edwards, two big players, and like won't be the last ones. It's like, yeah, dude, thanks. We know, we understand the economics of football, jerk. Thank you.
It'll be interesting to see what happens next. Like, we haven't recorded since the Slay thing really came out. I think that's an interesting thing that's happening.
Explain how that makes sense with the dead cap hit on his thing. Like, I just,
dude, I don't know, because
I'm so confused. Look, Hargrave that got $21 million a year. We're also still paying him $12 million this year, right? To play somewhere else.
Well, at least he's taking up that much.
Paying the dead cap, not paying him. You know what I mean? Yes.
Yeah. But look, the Slay thing to me. Now, I will say this. I think I have a pretty good understanding of the cap, and I talk to people that understand the cap.
I think you have it better than anyone in the media market that I hear personally. Outside of maybe like Joe Banner or people who've like literally done it work the team. Yeah.
The Kelce contracts, like all these deals that Howie has gotten himself into now are so incredibly complicated that, like, Kelce was on the books, but is not. And now, so there's a lot of stuff going on with the cap. The Darius Slay thing. If they trade him before June 1st, they, according to Over the Cap, and I believe this is correct when you look at his contract, accrue $22 million more of dead cap hit. Like,
that's not going to happen.
And we've talked about this where Howie knows what he's doing, dead cap hits for losers, all that stuff. Ultimately, when you get to 70-something million in dead cap, then you really have to start talking about this is becoming an issue on how you're doing it. So I personally think they're probably asking Slay to take a pay cut. He's saying no, and that's the problem. My advice to the Eagles would be this. Pay Darius Slay. It is Darius Slay is a number 1 cornerback in the NFL. I know he did not have a great second half of the year, whatever. Darius Slay is somebody you can say, go cover that number 1 receiver, and you can feel about as good about that as you can besides maybe 3 or 4 players in the NFL. So while Bradbury's a good player, I think he's obviously an elite number 2 corner, and I think he's a very good player. I am paying Slay. Like, I will pay Slay before I'm paying Chauncey. I think getting Slay back is pretty important.
Yeah, look, I think it just seems like Slay kind of has him over a barrel here, where it doesn't really make sense to get rid of him in any real kind of, if we're talking about a team that, and obviously how he says he's learned his lessons from the past, they're not going to like go for it in the same way they might have in the past. They can't really, they can't make that work. But there's a team that's in a Super Bowl window with Jason Kelce coming back, Brandon Graham coming back, and Jalen Hurts entering his, who knows what kind of prime this kid is going to have, and all that, and all the pieces, the whole offense coming back, essentially all that, essentially, outside of Small and whatever. So it's, this is a team that is ready to win now. So it creates a situation where with the Slay contract, the way it's set up with this dead cap, where he really has him over a barrel, because it's like, you need me, the player, and you also need space. I'm one of the 2 people who can give it to you. So, and it makes no sense for you to trade me, because then you're just financially more sharp. What are you going to trade me for? A 4th round pick or something? Like, what's the point of that? So I'm with you. I don't even think it comes down to this versus that or whatever. I think it's just like they don't really have much of a choice.
Well,
Slay knows it.
I agree with all that. And one thing people pointed out is the June 1st thing. If you trade him after June 1st, then you can't trade him for any draft picks this year. So I don't think they wait until after June 1st.
Yeah.
And they need to spend.
All right. So what do you think? And again, we will be back at 10 o'clock tomorrow. We just wanted to get something up because, Jason Kelce.
Yes, big deal.
Back. But I have to go pick up Zoe. But if you had to guess what the next, 10 o'clock tomorrow, we're obviously going to talk more about what we talked about today. But if you had to predict what's the next domino we're talking about tomorrow, who's gone, who's back, give me a prediction.
So I still think Bradbury's still my guy I'm holding on to that I think is going to be back, or at least has a good chance of being back. My biggest takeaway between now and 10 a.m. is this. Maybe by the time 10 a.m. happens, they're signing Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Maybe it happens. I personally don't buy the idea that they're pushing hard to re-sign him, that they're all into getting him. When's the last time Howie Roseman had a 24-year-old player he viewed as a core part of the team that he really wanted that hit free agency? All the time they signed their guys young, right? All the time they signed them early. If Howie wanted Chauncey, it would be really simple. It'd go, you're a key piece of our organization. Here's what you're worth. Here, blah, blah, blah. It would get done. I'm not saying they won't sign him. I do not believe that they are all in trying. To me, that sounds like agent propping up his market to make the other teams think they have to pay. I do not believe the Eagles are going to give Chauncey this like massive contract.
Love it. Love it. All right. Any final thoughts before we get out of here?
No.
I don't either. I
feel like too much is happening right now.
Don't stay up till midnight when you have to wake up at 3:20 in the morning. There's a thought.
Well, I texted you all my Oscar takes. So
yeah.
And we'll be here for 40 minutes.
Elliot, for those who didn't notice, Elliot hilariously did his. I of course put out my best picture rankings after painstakingly watching all 10 movies, even Triangle of Sadness, which was garbage and I hated. But I did the work, and Elliot just tweeted out the list of the rankings by gross, by box office. And it was like hilarious. It was very funny. It was a good bit for auto downloaders, real ones. It was a good bit. You did screw up though. And I told you this because the harder your take was, it should be the ones that is watched by the most people. All Quiet on the Western Front, Netflix. So seen by more people than maybe others in the list, but you had it last because it didn't have any box office.
Well, here's what I would say to All Quiet on the Western.
So
here's what I'd say to All Quiet on the Western Front. Be a real movie and go to the theaters. Okay. Like this isn't the G League. Go to the theaters like a real movie and see how you can hold up then. Like the other movies were braided.
Great stuff. It's great stuff. Great stuff. I have nothing else to say after
Let's wrap this bad boy up.
We'll wrap it up. All right. Until tomorrow. He's Elliot MJ.
All right. I'm ending the broadcast, guys, because James has to go. But thank you to everybody that listened.
Bye, guys. Thank you to everybody.